Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 170 of Actors with Issues with me, your host, Juan Ayala. I'm an actor and journalist who loves talking shop with actors and getting into the issues and how they got to where they are today and the lessons that they learned along the way. In today's episode, we speak with actress, producer, and DIY expert Gabrielle Bourne, who stars alongside Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in the upcoming film Air, which will be in theaters April 5th. The movie follows the story of Sonny Vaccaro and how he led Nike in pursuit of who would become the greatest basketball player in history, Michael Jordan. Gabrielle plays Sonny's right-hand woman, Tiffany, and she talks with us all about her experience working on the new film, which was originally supposed to be a one-day shoot for her, but ended up being almost a month long as they continued to expand her role the more she worked with the cast. Gabrielle also shares how she became the DIY renovator and expert that she is today, and how her love of acting began as a child when she was living in London with her family. She was born in Jersey and then moved to Belgium, London. We get into all of that with our interview. And before we dive into today's episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you may be listening or watching, and make sure to check out our YouTube channel, Actors with Issues, on YouTube for full video episodes every week. And now, please enjoy my conversation with Gabrielle Bourne. Gabrielle Bourne is on the Actors with Issues stage. Welcome to the show, Gabrielle. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Upon doing my research, I read that you sort of grew up a bit all over the place. Like me, originally from the East Coast, and then you spent some time abroad, in parts of Europe and Belgium and in London. But when was it exactly that you discovered this love of acting and sort of made up your mind that you wanted to sort of just dive right into it?
Yeah, it was actually while I was living in London. I was 11 or 12, and my school, I went to the American school in London, and they had a drama program as part of like the regular curriculum that you would take as a class in
Mhm.
school. And so I started taking it in school and just kind of fell in love with it. I actually ended up they needed a younger kid for the high school play. So I ended up doing the high school play that year, and like I just had a blast with it. And then I started taking class every Saturday outside of school. And then my acting teacher happened to be an agent. So she started
Wow.
sending me out for stuff. Like, the best surprise you could have as an actor. And then, yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it.
Mm.
I ended up then deciding to, when we moved back to the East Coast, we moved to New Jersey. And so I would drive into New York City to audition or whatever, and then also drive in for acting class every Saturday too.
Gotcha. And then you ended up attending USC, the School for Dramatic
Yeah.
Arts, and got your BFA there. Well, I'm curious, while you were there, did you have more of a goal of doing TV film work, or were you more in love with theater? I know it's sort of like a hard divide because training is based more in theater, but sort of
Yes.
more opportunity in film and TV. So I'm curious, which was it for you?
I've always been drawn more to film and TV for
Mhm.
some reason. I had so much fun doing theater in college and high school and before that, but I have always been more drawn to they're so different. And I think a lot of people don't realize, but just the idea of doing the work, working on something, building something up, and then kind of getting it out once and putting
Yeah.
it together as a full story. I just love that kind of way of doing things.
Mhm. I feel like there's a little bit less pressure because it's also not entirely in your hands. You could do multiple takes, but then the director and the editors have
Yeah.
their work to do after. Both theater, it's you can learn a bit more in the character and all of that, but with I feel like with film and TV, it's just it's out there and it's out of your hands. And that's it.
Yes, exactly. I have so much respect for theater actors to make something fresh night after night after night.
Mhm.
I think in my life in general, I don't really like redundance. Like I tend to anytime a job or something has come up where it's like repeating the same thing over, even with like whatever it is, things I do for fun or a workout or something. I can't do the same workout twice or the same, I love like that sense of not knowing what to expect. And I think that's what's so amazing about theater actors is that they're finding that every
Mhm.
night. They're finding something new every night in their performance. But that for me would be a challenge for months on end, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I can imagine. I haven't done theater in quite a bit. I'm an actor as well. I don't know if
Yeah,
if that was
yeah.
mentioned, but yeah, it's I haven't been to theater in a while, and I've sort of gravitated more toward TV and film, and I do miss it, but it's also like, okay, you like the one day or 1 week or 1 month of work, and then that's sort of it. It's not
Yes,
weeks on end of just rehearsing and then getting to that
100.
final product and then doing it over
Yeah.
and over.
Yeah, exactly. It's wild.
Yeah. And I'm curious, what would you say is maybe the first thing you learned fresh out of school while you're on a set? Because I know there's certain things that they don't teach us in school. They teach us all about technique and the craft itself, but no one teaches
Oh,
us what a turnaround means or the martini shot or anything. No one really goes
yeah.
over that kind of thing. So, what would you say is the first thing you learned?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that you learn coming out of school. College is great because they kind of set you up with a million different ways to do things and a million different techniques, so you can kind of see them all and what works best. And then post college training, it was like kind of figuring out that thing that worked best for you, you know?
Mm.
Um, I've kind of like been drawn towards more of an imagination based kind of way of working. Um, yeah, one thing I've learned from set, there's so many things. I think you go through that experience after of like the first few jobs that you get, you're showing up on a set where the people are there every day and you're kind of like this like showing up for this one moment and
Mhm.
trying to figure out how to handle it all and and show up and do your job. So I think just the thing of like being completely present and ready to go when you show up and not, you know, not worrying about any of the other things or how it's going to come off or only having a few takes or whatever it is. It's like
Mhm.
this pressure of you have this one moment, but just kind of being there and being present in the moment and not letting any of that outside stuff get to you.
And I'm curious, when did the DIY renovation and building come into play? Because I know that that was something that sort of out of school and whatnot in between jobs you were starting to work on, but how did all of that come about?
Yeah. It's so crazy how it's all come to be. You know, I was kind of after college doing what a lot of actors do, the bartending thing and dog walking and whatever kind of little odd jobs where I could be working and also have my days free to audition at a moment's notice or work at a moment's
Mhm.
notice. Um, and I started refinishing furniture and building furniture for people. This was after kind of we bought a house and I refinished my kitchen myself and kind of had fun doing that and seeing what the transformation could be. And then I got really into woodworking. I couldn't tell you how it came about. I think my uncle gave me a miter saw that he didn't need anymore. And I just started messing with it. And he showed me how to build a frame. And I just kind of started building custom furniture for people. And I like turned it into a kind of side hustle. And then I had always had this dream of doing a full fixer upper and I don't know, just seeing things online and seeing what was possible, that there's like this whole group of women out there who are fully learning how to build and transform their homes. And I got super into that. So I decided to general contract myself and, you know, build my kitchen myself and learn to tile. And it was kind of all a first thing, but it was kind of like one thing snowballed into the next, into
Yeah.
the next. And then it just became this obsession. And it kind of worked out beautifully because it's kind of become this like creative outlet on the, and it works really well alongside acting because I can kind of do it on my own as I have time. And it's like this thing of with acting, you're not getting to see a finished product a ton, and it's a lot of like behind the scene work, and it's a lot of relying on other people to give you a yes or to give you a,
Yeah.
you know, even if you're creating your own stuff, to create a crew or to find the money or to get a network to tell you yes, I'll make your show, whatever it is. like this is like this thing that I can do from start to finish on my own, and it fulfills that kind of like creative energy I have buzzing through me.
Mm.
So I feel super grateful that I've found it, because it's kind of kept me going over the last few years, and it's been like a good complementary thing to acting.
And it's you try to sort of meld or weld mesh. I'm
Yeah.
confusing my words here.
Yeah.
Both of them together. You wrote and produced a pilot, Mac of all trades, from what I read. So what can you tell us about that and sort of how that
Yeah.
came together of marrying those two things together?
Yeah, it's been so fun getting to like kind of put the two worlds together. I had some really funny experiences from my time as a female builder, handy woman when I was kind of doing jobs for other people, and the responses, reactions I would get. And so I just decided to write a kind of a teaser, and we shot it a couple years back, and then I ended up putting it out online as 6 different short episodes. But I'm working now on writing a full pilot version of that. It's a little different tone wise. It's kind of um, like Hulu's Dave and
Mhm.
the show Love on Netflix. So like the tone is changing a little bit and some things are changing, but the idea is the same. It's about this handy woman and Finnish carpenter as she kind of navigates dealing with society's expectations and what it's like to be a female in a male dominated industry.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's been, I mean, it's so fun that I get to combine those two things and create something.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, I hope we get to see more because I'll definitely have to check it out if it's still online. Where
Thanks.
can
Yeah.
folks find it if they were looking to check?
It's actually it's on YouTube, or it's on my Instagram at Gabby Gabby_Bourne Bourne. And yeah, I have my 6 short episodes up there now.
Awesome. And fast forward to today, or coming out on April 5th, in theaters is your latest role in Air, which I just saw the trailer. I forget what was the most. I go to the movies way too much. I forget what it
Yeah.
was. I saw the trailer of it and I was like, oh, I have to because I love Jason Bateman and
Oh my gosh.
Ben Affleck and just such in Matt Damon, just incredible cast, and Viola Davis and Chris Tucker. Just to name a few of the folks you're working alongside. So I'm curious if seeing as the film is based on real events and lots of real people, was that a particular challenge that you found, or were you just like game and ready to dive into the story?
Yeah, it was cool learning about it all. I definitely, tried to dive into the learning about, reading Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's book,
Mm.
and kind of learning about what Nike was, what the company was like in the 80s, diving into a new time period and all that. I wasn't playing a real, person, so it wasn't as challenging as I'm sure it was for the other actors who were, there's a lot of pressure there. I was on set the day that Sonny Vaccaro came to watch, and
Wow.
I was watching him watch the monitor of Matt Damon portraying him. And it was so fun just to see. He was just beaming and, just so happy. And then I was standing there for his conversation with Matt after, where he was just telling him how honored he was and how he thought he did such an incredible job. And he's just, so proud. And so that was a really cool moment to watch, because I'm sure Matt was feeling a lot of pressure
Yeah.
knowing that Sonny was watching him on the monitor, but he killed it. So, um, yeah.
Yeah. And from what I read, you initially were supposed to not have such a large role on the project. It was supposed to be just a few days and it ended up being a much larger shoot. So what was that experience like, just getting the call like,
Yeah.
hey, they want you back?
Yeah, so it was supposed to be one day.
Wow.
And I have this little scene with Jason Bateman. And then, I was there, and they kind of before my day was even over, they were like, "Hey, are you around the next few weeks? We'd love to have you come back in the world because, we're filming a lot, and we've kind of developed this space as your desk, and we'd love to have you here." So, yeah, I mean, I got to go back and watch these guys work day after day, and I just kind of went to set and soaked it all up as much as I could, and it was one of the coolest experiences I've had working on something, getting to see those people work. They're just incredible filmmakers in every way. And it was a really, really cool experience.
And seeing as, I mean, basically all three of the leads, Jason, Ben, and Matt, are all actors, producers, writers, directors. Like they've really done everything across the spectrum. So, um, are you sort of curious into looking more into developing things and getting more on the creative side, in addition to acting as well?
Yeah, 100%. I love, I've produced a few times now, and I love being involved and seeing how it all goes down. I I know after doing that acting is 100% like my favorite aspect of it all,
Yeah.
and I love a moment where I just get to show up and focus on that side of things for sure. But with the way things are, it's just kind of, it's part of the game as an actor to be creating things, and so that's 100% what I plan to do. And I've had a lot of fun writing, and kind of creating, and it's great to be able to have a say in like the things that you're working on, because as an actor you kind of just get a script, and especially earlier on in your career there's not much passing. You're kind of just like,
Yeah.
taking what comes your way. So it's definitely great creating things and getting to have the opportunity to, you know, decide what you're working on.
And with the name of our show being Actors with Issues, we do, touch on issues and career obstacles and all of that. So, uh, something that we sort of get some requests and some questions about is just sort of, uh, what have you noticed maybe has changed a bit in the industry over the last like 5 to 10 years? I feel like there is a huge change every decade or so. I mean, I feel like 10 years ago, streaming was nowhere near what it is today, and
Mm.
social media wasn't what it was now, and all of that. So what would you say is maybe like a pretty noticeable change that you've noticed?
Well, the thing people are talking about the most lately is the whole self-tape thing, and how,
Mhm.
these days everything audition wise is through self-tape, and we're not going in person, in front of CDs and all that. And there's a lot of different opinions on
Oh yeah.
all of it. We know, I am a huge fan of it. I live 45 minutes an hour away from
Me too.
Hollywood, and not having to drive every day, and getting to do it from the comfort of my home and schedule the time that works best for me. I have a 3-year-old, so that works. I'm loving it. um Obviously it's hard not to get that kind of in-person feedback, but how much feedback are we really getting in
That's what.
person anyway? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, and also I think the main thing that we need to be focusing on is how much more opportunity this is bringing for actors.
Yeah.
They are going to be able to see so many more tapes this way than if they're having to have in-person auditions. So it's already hard to get the opportunity, to read for something. So I think as much as we can spread that out and give more opportunities to more actors, to read, I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, folks, mind you, I don't want to like drag anybody, but
No, yeah,
just because I agree. I live pretty deep in Brooklyn. I'm on the East Coast, and have I remember having to go into Manhattan for a two-line co-star. There goes half your afternoon,
yeah,
and like you said, what feedback are you getting on the line is here's your check. They're not going to ask
yeah.
for a dozen redirects on that.
No.
Most of us are still auditioning for those smaller co-stars or
Yes.
one day guest stars where it's just a scene.
Yeah, you're going in
So
the room for five
yeah,
minutes.
yeah,
If
and yeah, it's just I understand both sides of it, and for the folks who are auditioning a lot for pilots and series regulars and leads, that I understand, because you do want to see those folks in person, get the energy in the room. But I never, my first reps were not even this market. They were in Atlanta and in Nashville. So even 2 years before the pandemic, I was doing tapes. So that's kind of all I've known. So when folks
Mhm.
are saying let's go back, I'm like, do we have to? Maybe
Yeah.
guest stars and up, but co-stars, let's keep it tapes because it's just
Yes.
so much easier, like you said.
100%. I was just talking to a CD about this last night, because I was like, I have to think of like what the reason could possibly be that, I get wanting to be in person and make an impression and all that, but you're making an impression through your tape. It's
Yeah,
just that you don't know what the reaction is,
right,
So I feel like it's more about like validation and the fact that we as actors don't get a lot of validation, or we don't get a lot of, we don't get to see somebody, you know, responding to our work or whatever, but
right.
they're responding to it, whether we're in person or whether we're not there, we're just not seeing it. So ultimately, we just have to find a way to seek validation elsewhere, or find a way to not need it in the first place and
Yeah,
fill our lives with other things that are kind of bringing that sense of like feeling like we're fulfilled in that way, wow, alongside of this.
yeah, completely agree. I mean, I started the podcast during the very beginning of the pandemic because I wanted a new creative outlet, and here we are
That's
almost 3 years later. And a lot of
incredible.
folks have talked about that, and we're later this year we're hitting episode 200, if I can believe that, which is crazy. But so many folks have talked about sort of they had to find another passion, because especially Broadway actors, they couldn't perform for a year, if not
Yeah.
longer, and they had to find another outlet. People started learning an instrument, they started learning new sports or whatever it was, and just
Yes.
finding those other things that brought them joy that was not acting. Because
Yes.
we might love acting, but it becomes more of a, not to say a chore, but not as much of a I love to do this, because not everyone has a chance to actually do it all the time, to act all the time.
You have to have something that fills your soul up. The best advice I ever got was from my acting teacher and mentor, Keith Bogart, who what he tells us all the time is just like, you can't wait to be working consistently to be happy. You have to be happy now, because that job isn't going to bring happiness. That work, you have to have a full life around it. And so, yeah, I think it's great. I'm so glad you started the podcast. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So again, with Air coming out April 5th in theaters exclusively. So folks, make sure you go see that. I wanted to see it beforehand, but sadly there weren't screeners available. So but I would have loved to dive in a little bit more. But thank you so much for taking the time to come chat with us. And if anyone wants to give you a follow on Instagram, you did mention it before, but what is that handle?
Yes, it's Gabby_Bourne. And I share a lot of DIY projects and all the fun stuff on there.
Awesome. And folks, you know the drill. You can follow us on Instagram at Actors with Issues. Give me a follow at Juan Ayala Official, and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes every Monday and bonus episodes throughout the week. And once more, Air is in theaters exclusively April 5th. I'm Juan Ayala. This is Actors with Issues, and we'll see you next week.